Every one of my photos gets some degree of post-processing, and it's usually not much. It's usually just like adjust the levels a little bit, like turn down the highlights, boost the shadows, like just basic stuff like that. This photo is genuinely photoshopped, and not that it's not cheating, I don't think. So this is a picture of I think it's a Luna moth. I don't know. So we've established by now I don't know anything about plants or animals, but this is a moth that was sitting on our back door. And this is not a special pre-planned stage photo. It's just a moth on my back door. And my kids saw it one day and they're like, "Dad, check it out, a moth." And I thought it looked really cool. So I grabbed my camera, got my 50mm lens, and I think I used my +4 close-up filter for this. This moth is maybe 3/4 of an inch across. I don't remember exactly, but I shot this picture of this moth using a close-up filter and a relatively small aperture because I didn't want a super shallow depth of field. And I was able to get this picture where the main features of the moth are pretty sharp. The boundaries of the wings, like those fringes on the edge of the wings, those are out of focus. Either it's distortion from the glass or it's the really, really shallow depth of field. I think it could go either way. But what's photoshopped about this is the background. Not that it's a background replacement or anything, but the background was, it's my window, my back door window. And it was full of smudges and dust and everything. And you don't normally notice it when you're looking at a window, but when you get really, really, really close, you can see every little speck of dust. And that's what you saw in this photo, was this really nice clear moth and then just this background that was full of all these dust specks. And I wanted to see if I could fix that somehow. So I went into Lightroom and I'm playing around with the spot healing brush, but oh man, that was going to take way too long. So I brought it into Photoshop, which I don't use Photoshop that often. I'm familiar with it enough, like I'm competent at Photoshop, but I'm not like a Photoshop wizard or anything. I brought it into Photoshop, made a new layer. I used layer masking to show just the moth in the top layer, and then on the bottom layer, I applied I think a dust and scratches filter, a really heavy-handed dust and scratches filter. And that basically took care of getting rid of all of those smudges in the background. So when I say this photo is genuinely photoshopped, I mean I edited it in Photoshop. But I didn't do any like massive replace the background with something else or put extra features on the moth where none existed before. It's just that the editing required was a little more than what Lightroom could handle. It's kind of fun to go into Photoshop every now and then and see what you can do. If you have the Adobe Creative Cloud photography plan, you have Photoshop anyway, so you might as well give it a try and see if there's, I don't know, just go check it out and see what you think. As far as the picture itself, I like how it's backlit. I don't remember what time of day this was, but I think the sun was coming in at such an angle to really lend this nice glow to the moth. And honestly, this is not some grand pre-planned stage photo. It was just a moth that my kids happened to notice. It wasn't that groundbreaking, but it was cool to take this picture of an ordinary moth in an ordinary setting in a way that made it look kind of cool. So I'm really glad with the result. I like how the photoshopping turned out, and I think it's a cool photo.